Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League mode. My name is Pete and today we complete the rest of the year 2018 and we'll also see how far we can get into January with our expansion team, the Louisville Legionnaires. Now, as you know, the Legionnaires have been struggling lately. Our 11-17 record is not really where I want the team to be at the moment, and we also had quite a few injuries in the last episode, so that didn't exactly help either. Our first week in this episode starts off with the San Antonio Spurs, who currently occupy the 7th seed in the Western Conference, and then 2 days later we will once again face off against Kevin Durant's Indiana Pacers. However, before we start things off today, I want to make a quick roster adjustment, and that one concerns Rodney Hood. As you can see, Rodney Hood is currently listed as a shooting guard, with point guard being his secondary position. However, for us he almost exclusively plays the small forward position. And since we're now almost 30 games into the season, I see no reason not to change his position to small forward permanently, but he can keep the shooting guard as his secondary position. Let's quickly exit and accept, and we can see here that his rating has increased by 2 points. This position change also helps to outline a problem that we have pretty much for the entire season really, and that is our logjam at the small forward position. With Rodney Hood, Kyle Kuzma and Mo Harkless, we have 3 guys here who should get minutes and who do get minutes at the moment, but at least with Kuzma and Harkless, probably not at the level they deserve. That is also something we will talk about a bit later, but for now let's get started with our game against the San Antonio Spurs. And it is once again a close one, and there have been plenty of those this season, but in the end we come away with the victory on the road 118-116. Our top scorers for tonight, Josh Richardson with 17 and Hernan Gomez with 17, and also very nice to see Rashad Vaughn with 16 points off the bench. Mo Harkless added 15 points, Tyler Ulis had 14 and Yogi Ferrell had 11, and with that 6 of our guys had double-digit scoring performances here. Nice to see that the team effort is still working out. One last thing to mention about this game is that we also hit 17 3-pointers at a very efficient 53%, which also might have played a role in this victory. Now up next we already have the Indiana Pacers coming up, and as you might remember we faced them near the end of the last episode. Now we lost that game in a close finish by 3 points, however I have to mention that Yogi Ferrell wasn't with us in that one, as he was missing due to injury. For today's game Yogi Ferrell is back in the rotation, so let's see if that changes things. And it doesn't look like it. Despite having a narrow first quarter lead, we were comfortably blown out for the rest of the game, and so in regular season game number 30 we earn regular season loss number 18. For us, Rodney Hood was without a doubt the performer of the night, shooting 10 of 14 from the field and 5 of 8 from deep to finish the game with 27 points. The 3 next best scorers all came off the bench, as Bryce Johnson added 18, Rashad Vaughn once again had 13 off the bench, and nice to see that Mohamed Bamba once again got himself in double digits as well. Yogi Ferrell, on the other hand, who I thought might be the X-factor in this game, managed to play 20 minutes without scoring a single point. Now, the next 2 games are games that we don't have to win, but that we should win if we want to improve our record. The Brooklyn Nets currently only sit in 10th place of the Eastern Conference and are therefore very much beatable, and the Atlanta Hawks are even worse off as they currently occupy the very last spot. So against the Nets, the team already fails to execute the plan, as we lose this one 104-97, and also of note here the third quarter where we gave up 40 points. Now I once again chose this layout of the box score to help you guys see a bit more, but then again there's not really that much to see, apart from the 5 guys who scored in double figures in Rodney Hood, Tyler Ulis, Josh Richardson, Kyle Kuzma and Yogi Ferrell. Now also of note here the abysmal shooting percentages for both Yogi Ferrell and Rodney Hood, and with Rodney Hood I actually thought that this might be a trend lately, because he really didn't shoot the ball that well in quite a few of the other games I looked at in the past. However, then I had a look at his numbers and I saw that his field goal percentage of 42% is not really all that great, but it is perfectly in line with his career average. Where Rodney Hood seems to shine is 3-point shooting, because he currently makes a career-high 40.3% from deep, so maybe we just have to have him focus a bit more on that and less on the inside shot. I also had a look at his shot chart, and that seems to confirm things. Rodney Hood currently red hot from deep, apart maybe from that left side where he only shoots 11 of 34, and then the closer we get to the basket, the more streaky things become. Especially those 2 areas close to the basket, the one in the middle and the one on the right, those seem to be areas where he's quite inconsistent, however at the same time also areas where he shoots quite a lot from. Now, one more thing that's interesting here is that Rodney Hood also seems to hate the mid-range shot. I quickly crunched the numbers and Hood has only taken 37 shots from mid-range so far, while in total for the entire season he has already taken 359. So Hood takes only about 10% of his shots from mid-range, despite having 80+ ratings in all 3 mid-range shooting stats, and despite also having one of his hot zones in mid-range territory. So maybe we can consider this a change in coaching strategy for Hood, but I went ahead and changed a few of his tendencies. First of all, I increased his overall shot tendency from mid-range from 15 to 30, and I also increased the tendency to shoot from that mid-right center hotspot from 5 to 15. Now, I know those changes are not terribly dramatic, but maybe they do have a noticeable effect, so let's keep an eye out for that. Let's get back to the schedule though. Up next we have the last game of the week, going up against the Hawks in Atlanta. However, before we get to play this one, we have an interesting trade. The Las Vegas Aces are looking to unload Serge Ibaka and Dwayne Dedmon to the Toronto Raptors, who in exchange would give up Jonas Valanciunas and CJ Miles. And let's have a closer look at this. The Raptors, who currently occupy the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, would certainly lose one of their best players in Jonas Valanciunas. However, they would also get rid of a $17.6 million player option. Not only that, but by trading CJ Miles, they would also get rid of an additional $8.7 million for next season, and by trading him, they would also free up some space at the small forward for OG Anunoby to step in behind Rudy Gay. It has to be noted though that the Raptors are currently very thin down low, with 2 expiring 38-year-old players at the power forward, and losing Valanciunas also doesn't exactly help the situation. At least in that regard, it is good to see that by agreeing to this trade, they would acquire 2 more big men in Serge Ibaka and Dwayne Dedmon. And while Dwayne Dedmon is expiring and should therefore appeal to the Raptors, that is if they want to save money, the story is an entirely different one with Serge Ibaka. Not only is Ibaka 3 years older than Valanciunas and also lower rated, but his contract for the next season is also worth $6 million more than Valanciunas' player option, so neither in player value nor in contract value do the Raptors really gain anything here. Acquiring another big man to help their rotation is certainly interesting, but then again, on an expiring contract, Dwayne Dedmon is not really a long-term project. In terms of finances, the Raptors' situation won't improve no matter what they do here. Whether they keep Valanciunas and Miles around or acquire Serge Ibaka, their cap space for the next season will be minimal at best. So in the end, I decided to decline the trade. It really doesn't make that much sense for the Raptors. But now, let's finally get back to the matchup at hand, our game against the Atlanta Hawks. However, we come up short again, and in convincing fashion, as we lose to the Hawks in Atlanta 120 to 90. Zach LaVine dropped 45 points on us, and that certainly had something to do with it, while on our side the only guy that really stood out was Tyler Ulis, who scored 20 points to go along with 3 assists. Despite the recent tendency changes, Rodney Hood remained rather quiet in this one with only 12 points, and Bryce Johnson also added 12 with 6 rebounds. Now in the next week we once again have 4 games coming up, 2 against the Milwaukee Bucks, 1 against the Timberwolves and 1 against the Jazz. And for those interested, after losing the last 3 games, we now sit in spot number 14 of the Eastern Conference, not really where I wanted to be at this point. And the trend continues against the Milwaukee Bucks as we once again lose this game on the road by 6 points. Ulis, Harkless, Hood and Hernangomez are our top scorers in this one, and although nobody really shot poorly, the Bucks just seem to be a tiny bit better. Against the Timberwolves then, we finally come away with a victory, although I have to admit, looking at their 4th quarter comeback, I had my doubts about that. Rodney Hood led all scorers with 16 points, although once again on horrible efficiency, while Kyle Kuzma added a much more efficient 15 points to go along with 8 rebounds. Mohamed Bamba scored 14 points and grabbed 6 rebounds, and Tyler Ulis and Josh Richardson were also both in double digits with 13 points each. An honorable mention goes to Deyonta Davis, who just grabbed a season-high 13 rebounds. And with that, Davis is currently averaging about 10 points, 12 rebounds and 2 blocks per 36 minutes. And let's actually compare those numbers to Mohamed Bamba, who per 36 minutes is currently averaging about 16 points, 10 rebounds and 1 block per game, with slightly higher assist and steal numbers, although at slightly lower efficiency. Still, the difference in field goal percentage is not that big, and looking at our current situation, we have to change something, and so, effective immediately, Mohamed Bamba is moving into the starting lineup. This moves Deyonta Davis to the bench, where I think he will still be productive. Now, I will keep a close eye on whether or not we have a bit too much outside shooting and not enough of an inside presence with both Hernangomez and Bamba in the starting lineup. And if that is the case, then we can simply switch Hernangomez with the more inside-oriented Bryce Johnson. And let's see how that new lineup does in our rematch against the Bucks. And look here, apart from the second quarter, the Legionnaires always in control of this one, resulting in a 106-81 victory. Richardson and Farrell leading the team in scoring with 18 points each, while Kuzma added 11 to go along with 8 rebounds, and Hood, Harkless and Bamba all added 10 points each. Last game of the week and actually also of the year then against the Jazz, and we came very close to losing this one, but in the end we were able to fight off a late fourth quarter comeback and stay on top 116-115. Leading the team in scoring tonight was Josh Richardson with 22 points, including 4 3-pointers, while Farrell and Hood both added a very efficient 16 each, and Mo Bamba produced, I believe, the first double-double of his career with 14 points and 10 rebounds. Rashad Vaughn saw the green light a bit too much tonight, shooting 5 of 16 for 12 points, while Mo Harkless also added 12 with a much more efficient 5 of 6 shooting performance. Simulating through the rest of the year, we have one more trade offer coming up, as the Denver Nuggets look to trade Wilson Chandler and Darrell Arthur for Jordan Clarkson and Ivica Zubac from the Lakers. Once again, let's have a look at that, and we can very quickly see that this trade is not the most sensible one for the Lakers, as losing Jordan Clarkson would also mean losing the only backup point guard on the roster. At the same time, I think Zubac is going to be a lock as the first man off the bench for the Lakers, and I believe he's also going to be a restricted free agent next season, so his expiring contract shouldn't be anything to worry about. Additionally, by making this move, Denver would lose one of only 2 small forwards on the roster. The only upside for them would be to get rid of Darrell Arthur, who is stuck behind 4 other guys at the power forward spot, but they could also simply wait out the season as Arthur is on an expiring contract. All in all, I don't really think this trade is going to benefit anyone, so I'm going to decline it. And so we finished the year 2018 on a 3-game win streak, improving our record to 15-21, which is actually on pace to win about 34 games this season. And at this point, we have 2 things to talk about. The first thing, contract extensions, because everyone who's eligible for one is currently willing to re-sign with the team. Now, there are a few guys that I definitely want to bring back in this group. Deyonta Davis, for example, is one such guy. But there are also other players that I'm still very much debating, for example Alex Abrines. By the way, I also don't really know why Mo Harkless appears in this list, because as you can see on the top right, he still has 2 years left on his current contract. Now, we're not going to re-sign anyone to an extension in this episode, but feel free to already leave your takes on the situation in the comments below, as I'm very interested to hear who you would resign and who you would let walk into free agency. One last thing here, Tyler Ulis is eligible for an extension, but he also has a $1.5 million team option coming up, and since that is by far the cheaper option, we will take that one instead of the extension here. The second thing we need to talk about, and I already mentioned that in the beginning of this video, is our forward situation. Like I said, Hood, Kuzma and Harkless all deserve a good amount of playing time at the moment, but of course fitting all 3 of them in at the small forward spot is more or less impossible. The main issue is that while both Kuzma and Harkless can both play the power forward position as well, we don't really have minutes to give them there either, as both Hernangomez and Johnson have also earned themselves the minutes here. Moving Johnson to the center spot to free up space at the power forward is an interesting idea in theory, but with Davis, Diallo and Bamba we're stacked at that rotation as well, and Diallo isn't even part of the rotation at the moment. So considering that we're very likely looking at a trade here, we're now left with a small number of options. The first one, and arguably also the most obvious one, would be to trade Mo Harkless. Now, while Harkless currently still is our best wing defender, his numbers this season so far are really nothing to get all too excited about. He scores about 7 points a night, and at 6'9" he barely grabs 3 rebounds per game, and considering that he is somewhat of a defensive-minded player, his steal and block numbers could also look a bit better. His shooting percentages are not terribly bad, but also nothing too special, while his free throw shooting is actually slowly but steadily becoming a liability. All of that, of course, not necessarily reasons to trade him, that is until we look at his contract. Harkless is guaranteed to make $11.5 million next season, and coming off the bench in a very crowded small forward rotation, that is money I think we could spend elsewhere. Of course, we are currently not under pressure to save money, but then again we also don't need to spend it needlessly. Another option, freeing up space at the power forward, would be to trade Juan Hernangomez. His contract is one that should be very desirable for pretty much every team in the league right now, and as a stretch 4 with an excellent outside touch, he certainly has a lot of upside. That is, however, also one of the reasons I'm not terribly convinced by this option at the moment, because Hernangomez is actually our best 3-point shooter at the moment, shooting about 45% from deep. Now, we could of course also try and move Kyle Kuzma, who still has a cheap 2-year team option coming up and should therefore be easy to trade as well. But given a few years' time, I think Kuzma can actually develop into one of the team's best players, so I'm not really ready to pull the trigger on this move either. Now, Bryce Johnson is one of those guys I've grown really fond of, and I think you may have noticed that over the course of this playthrough, so moving him is not really an option for me at the moment. So in the end, that leaves us pretty much only with Harkless or Hernangomez, and I think my tendencies at the moment regarding this decision are clear. Still, as with every decision we make in this playthrough, I would love to hear your thoughts on it first, so leave your comments down below with ideas on how we might solve the logjam at small forward. And I think even though we just completed 8 games in this episode, this is a very good point to make the cut. I went a bit deeper into detail with a few things today, but I still hope you enjoyed the episode, and of course if you did, then leave a like on the video. If you want to support the channel, then go ahead and feel free to subscribe, and as always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!